Now it is my pleasure to formally and for real introduce Dr. Sailesh Rao. Sailesh, please take it away. You got a lot of fans here and a lot of love. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jamin. This is the political talk that I'm going to give. I'm calling it now Healing the Planet or How Not to Go Extinct. This is the second talk in the webinar series. Last week I did the overview. The next one, the social, and then ecological, spiritual, economy, personal. I want to acknowledge, and I'm grateful to you, Jamin, and to Jean-Francois for teaching me about collective intelligence and how decisions can be made in a better way rather than entrusting it all to one single person, assuming that that person has the intelligence and the capacity to make decisions. I'm also grateful to Dr. Shelley Ostroff for her work on deconstructing democracy and eco-governance. I'm also grateful to Mahatma Gandhi for writing the book Hind Swaraj, because in Hind Swaraj, he examined the underpinnings of industrial civilization as we know it, and he pointed out how it was literally factory farming human beings. I mean, that wasn't the term he used, but that's literally what he was saying. Obviously he was hitting on the truth about what was going on. And he suggested that we need to go back to the way we used to do things, more of an indigenous way of life. So he wrote this book in 1909, and the British government at that time banned the book. And when the government banned the book, it became an instant bestseller in India. So it was translated into every language in India, and people were bootlegging copies all over the place, and Gandhi became famous. Because until then, nobody knew who he was. He was just a lawyer in South Africa, and he was traveling on a ship between London and South Africa when he wrote this book. It took 2 months to go from London to South Africa during those days. In that book, he compared all of the processes in industrial civilization and how they're all geared towards destruction and fixing the destruction. So it was constantly about destroying things and then fixing the destruction. So he said even health is about giving people diseases and then fixing the diseases. Legal system is also about taking a conflict and making it worse and then figuring out who's the winner. A conflict should really be resolved by someone who's mediating. So he had segments in the chapters in his book on each aspect of human life and how every aspect should be changed from what it was in the industrial civilization. So in a way, we are actually implementing what he was trying to do at that time. That's what we are trying to do now. Everyone has been trying to do this, but I think now is the moment when we are forced to do this. And this, I think, is the greatest transformation in human history, what we are undergoing today. Robert Swan said the last great exploration on Earth is to survive on Earth. How are we going to survive on Earth? Things may look bleak, and Valerie Kaur in her TED Talk had this great line. She said, the darkness of the tomb is also the darkness of the womb. So it looks like we continue doing what we're doing, we're going to go extinct, but it's also a process of birth. We are being called to be born again as a different kind of species. In the process of birth, there is a process of going through the birth canal, which is the transformation from where we were to where we need to go. And then finally, once you're born, there's a different way of existing. So you have both of these that we have to think about and figure out what are we going to do, how to get through the birth canal and how to get out, and what are we going to be when we get out. I have been talking about the 7 core shifts, and it's going from where we are today to where we need to be. It's going from a path towards extinction to a path towards transforming and thriving. I'm convinced that the only way out is to go from the current system of normalized violence to a system of normalized nonviolence. Because nonviolence is the only thing that's sustainable, that you can keep doing forever. And we have gone from a prey species to a predator species. That was the transformation that we did over the last 300,000 years. We went from being a prey for the first 250,000 years of our existence to a predator species in the last 50,000 years. And now we are the top predator species. Now from this, we have to transform to a caretaker species, because that's the only thing that's sustainable. If we continue as a predator species, we are not going to be sustainable. It'll end. We have been calling ourselves Homo sapiens so far. We are going around saying we are the wisest of all the species. We are the wise species compared to all these other species who are dumb, right? That's a very narcissistic perspective of life. And I'm saying the transformation is from that. I used to call it Homo Ahimsa. I'm now going to call it Holo Ahimsa, because Holo is whole, becoming whole again, as opposed to isolating ourselves to being just a primate. Now we have to look at all beings as our relatives, not just primates as our relatives. Being whole again. And Ahimsa is nonviolence. So this is a mix of a Latin word and a Sanskrit word. So it's also symbolic of us coming together as a species across the whole world. In terms of the David analogy that I used in the last talk, it's from focusing on the marble shards, which is the mess that we have made, to focusing on the David that we have created. Because we have really created a homeostasis for planet Earth. We have all the tools and technologies we need to maintain homeostasis for planet Earth, so that the temperature does not ever change. We can maintain the same climate. I am saying this is a transformation from a dominant, exploitative murderers of animals and nature, which turns out to be demons, to a vitally engaged guardians of animals and nature. So that's demons to vegans. And I think it's important that we use the right language so people can say, yeah, I don't want to be a demon anymore. I want to become a vegan. So the 7 core shifts are the same: the speciesism, colonialism, racism, ableism, patriarchy, to veganism and radical equality, from diseases and divisions for humanity to health and unity for humanity, from destruction and pollution of the planet to remediation and regeneration of the planet, from death and cruelty to animals to love and kindness for animals, from a culture of consumption to a culture of compassion, from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, and from a money-driven economy to a service-driven economy. How do we organize ourselves during the transition during our passage through the birth canal? So during the transition from where we are to being born fully as a Holo Ahimsa species. And how do we organize ourselves when we become Holo Ahimsa? And are they both the same? I don't know. So these are the questions that we need to explore. That is the political side of this transformation. How do we organize ourselves? How do we make decisions? And how do we create this transition automatically? Now, I believe that using a currency like Aquarius, playing a game like Aquarius, would help us do this transition, because it would allow us to make corporations do the work that they need to be doing. Because right now, corporations are basically demons. But by eating just vegan food, we are forcing corporations to start producing vegan products. We see that happening. We are making them change by changing our consumer patterns. Similarly, I think by using the Aquarius game, we can make corporations change in every aspect of their work so that the transition can happen. And then finally, maybe it'll all be just cooperatives. In a completely Aquarius economy, we don't need major big corporations like that. I don't know. To give a picture of what this transition is, so each of the 7 core shifts, from speciesism, colonialism, racism, ableism, and patriarchy, to veganism and radical equality. I think this illustration on the left and the right perfectly illustrate what this transformation we are talking about. This is where we are. Highly militarized, factory farmed human beings living in little boxes everywhere, who are being oppressed, who are unhealthy, who have to consume drugs all the time. And we're all being farmed for extracting money and funneling it to the top, because that's the game we are playing today. And transforming that game to a world in which we can live freely, we can contribute our gifts, and we can have a healthy planet in which to thrive. From diseases and divisions for humanity to health and unity for humanity. We have a system in which, even as the demand for animal products decreases, our government is subsidizing them, buying up the extra meat and storing it in warehouses and propping up the industry, promoting it. And you say, why would you promote something that causes cancer? Someone imagined an ad for McDonald's that would say something like this, if it was the truth. Eating processed meat causes cancer. We don't care. Give us your money. That's exactly what's going on. Why would we continue doing that when we can be eating really good vegan food and thriving on the planet at the same time, and thriving together with all the other species on the planet? From destruction of the planet, which is what currently causes the source of money creation, to regeneration of the planet. so that we are putting our resources towards remediation and regeneration as opposed to destruction and pollution. From death and cruelty to animals to love and kindness for animals. That should become normal. And this transformation is already happening. This is what the vegan movement is all about. Demands that this be normal. From a scarcity mindset, we have a system now where people who grow too much lose out everything and they commit suicide, which is ridiculous that we have a system like that. And then we wonder, why is there so much hunger on the planet? Obviously, you're going to get scarcity when you value scarcity. So we need to value abundance. We need to promote abundance in the game that we are playing. From a consumer-oriented economy where it's all about consumption and how much are you consuming? Are we consuming more every month? Because only then will the economy grow. And it's all about consume, consume, consume. And from promoting consumption to promoting compassion. So that's the Aquarius game in which we are actually rewarded for being compassionate. The purpose of the Aquarius game is to get money out of the picture. The main objective of the game today is to get money. Money doesn't show up automatically. You have to somehow accumulate it and then use it, or you have to keep working for somebody. So it's a money-driven economy, and it's the drive for money that causes all the activities in the economy at the moment. And from that, you need to change to a service-driven economy in which people are doing things because they want to do things. This is exactly the kind of work that I was doing. The first job that I got as a researcher for Bell Labs, that wasn't the best offer I got in terms of money, but I joined Bell Labs because that job, I was having fun. It was about doing whatever you wanted and creating new things for the good of the whole, for the public. If all of our jobs were like that, I bet you everyone would enjoy it, just like I enjoyed my job at Bell Labs. And each of us have the three core gifts that we can give. Helping with shedding the predator role, helping with birthing the caretaker species, and then transforming our narratives and myths. Because we are telling a new story. I mean, literally what we are doing now by telling this new story, the story of the thermostat species, it's as significant as discovering that the earth is not flat. Because it's changing our mindset, changing our mind into thinking differently. So there is a lot of work to be done in telling the new myth, the new narratives about who we are as a species and how we are part of this larger intelligence that's helping us transform. So when we go from calling ourselves Homo sapiens to calling ourselves Homo ahimsa, we are actually becoming more humble as a species. We are recognizing that nature is much more powerful than we ever gave credit for. In fact, just take a look at what she's doing. With a single tiny little virus, she's making the entire human economy not going to work at all. She's shaking it, right? One tiny little virus. So that should give us pause when we go around pretending to be this powerful, dominant species. Hey, we are part of something much, much bigger, and we better start looking at our role from a very humble perspective. So that's the new narrative and the new myths that we need to be telling people. And again, from a transformation perspective, there are 4 transformative roles: as illuminators, where we tell the new stories; as hospice care workers, where we help the old transition to the new. So we get rid of animal agriculture industries and turn that into plant-based industries. That's hospice care workers. Third is as protectors of the new. And finally, as trailblazers or innovators, figuring out processes for the new system, figuring out how are we going to do things in the new world. So birthing the caretaker species, as Buckminster Fuller said, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them, because it's going to take a long time to teach them. In our minds, it's very hard for us to change our minds and then change our actions. Instead, if you give them a tool or a game, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking, they'll automatically change because we are great at using tools. That's who we are. We are a tool maker, an engineering species. The new political organization is going to be about implementing the Vitality Code. So our goal should be to help each one of us become all that we are so that we can contribute our gifts, receive all that we need, so that we don't lack for anything to give our gifts, and so that we can give all that we can. The idea is that if each of us is giving more than we are receiving, the planet is going to thrive. In fact, that's the only way the planet thrives. This is how every other species behaves. So we have done our bit about making sure that the planet will never go back to another ice age. And now we have to transform and regenerate the planet and become this caretaker species. And to do that, we have to create systems, processes for implementing this vitality code. That's the role of the political organization. And it takes courage to do this. It takes courage to be an explorer. Can you imagine the first fish that went on land had trouble breathing? So stick your head out and come back in, stick your head out, come back in. And eventually came out and said, okay, now I have a nose so I can breathe. It takes courage. Every species has these explorers that go out and try new things. And it has conservatives that sit back and say, we know this and we don't want to change. And you need both in any species. Because if you don't have the conservatives, the explorers can go try something stupid and kill themselves off. Everyone is following the explorers all the time. We'll all be dead as a species. So you need both as a species. But now is the time when we need to listen to the explorers more. The explorers are going to grow in number because the explorers have found another way of living, a non-violent way of living that is clearly more sustainable than what we are doing today. It's clearly a better place to go to than where we are now. And that, to me, is the role of America. That was the original role of America. This was where the explorers of our species came. This is where we are always ready to explore new things. John F. Kennedy said, we choose to go to the moon, and we went to the moon in 7 years. And this inspired me to come to this country. It inspired me to become an engineer. And it inspired me to come to this country because I said, this is where things are happening. This is where I need to be for doing something new. And we need to rekindle that explorer spirit. And that's what this is about. We need to be creating these new processes and new systems for the good of the whole and not taking a backseat, not constructing walls. I mean, that's an anti-explorer approach, is to construct walls, isolate yourself, and go into a shell. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. Let's not wait for our leaders, the Pope or the president or senators to allocate resources to help us do this. No, they're not going to do it. They're stuck in the old system. They're stuck in sitting in the womb until it becomes a tomb. They will never change that. Okay. So it's up to the explorers, the grassroots, to say, okay, here is a way out through the birth canal. And this is how we need to be organizing ourselves when we get out of this birth canal. So we are the ones we've been waiting for. The three main transformations in the political side is changing from governance for economic growth to governance for ecological thrivability. The only legitimate purpose of governance is to ensure the health and vitality of the planet and all inhabitants on the planet. It is not a legitimate purpose of governance to protect the property of one individual. This is not what it's for. We shouldn't be putting our collective efforts for that purpose. Okay? Our collective efforts should be to ensure the thrivability of the planet. And instead of a concentration of power, which is what we have today, we have to have a much more distributed power systems. And instead of a representative democracy, which becomes a tyranny of the majority, it has to be a participatory democracy where everyone feels like, and everyone not only feels like, they know that their voice is being heard. And we have all the tools and technologies we need to do this now. So here are all the questions we came up with on the political side. On Basecamp, we have created these study groups in which we have listed these questions and we are saying, okay, how do we answer these questions? So we are now looking at how do we do this? How do we answer all these questions? These are the questions on the transition, and these are the questions on the new model. And I'm sure there are more questions that will come up as we answer these questions. Or maybe from these questions, we can refine them into easier questions that we can answer and so on. So we have this process of refinement that needs to happen now. And now we are exploring the process options in Basecamp. How do we do this? Do we do a sociocracy type approach in which we come to some kind of a consent-based approach, which allows people to collaborate at any scale? Or should we use holacracy? Holacracy is more useful in organizations where everyone gets a role to play, and then they can change their roles as time progresses. but everyone has a purpose and a role, and then they go off and implement that role. And then they come and meet again and decide if they're going to change the roles. Or do we do something like Wikipedia to answer these questions? At first, at least on Basecamp for Vegan World 2026. Because Wikipedia, anyone can go and edit the answers to the questions. And there is a process of refinement that happens. So maybe it's Wikipedia combined with Quora, because in Quora, multiple answers to a given question. And then people rate those answers to see which one bubbles up. Now, even there, you can say the answers are like Wikipedia entries, because your answer can be edited by someone else who can update it, who can add to it. So it becomes like a Wikipedia Quora combination. So we're looking at these processes to see how are we going to organize ourselves, how are we to answer these questions, and how are we going to then organize ourselves to play the new game, and how are we going to then transition from the old game to the new game, and what does it look like when you're playing or just the new game. So anyway, thank you very much. This is just a summary, and I'm sure you have plenty of questions. All our work is available on climatehealers.org as open source. So anything you can take from my books or from Climate Healers website and use it in any way you want. So thank you very much.
Beautiful, Silas. Wonderful, amazing. My goodness, brother, you keep getting better and better. And wow, just more and more clear and just right to the heart of it all. A lot of people with questions and comments. Yes, Brett, followed by Melissa. Go ahead, Brett.
Hey there. Thanks for all you do. It's epic work. I would be interested especially to learn more about sociocracy and holacracy. In our project, we've kind of looking at creating a little bit of a hybrid, I might say, or transcending and including those models. I personally don't think holacracy can work for an organic type of movement. If you try to reverse engineer something you're already doing with holacracy, it doesn't seem to work for people. My layman's expertise is I bet you sociocracy will be way more aligned with what you're trying to do, et cetera. But that's just my 2 cents.
Sure, thank you.
I'd like to observe the attempt at it. I would like to introduce you to my wife at some point to have a conversation about what you've been looking at and experiencing and what we've been looking at and experiencing, and see if you guys want to jam on that sometime.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we would love that.
And thanks for everything you do, man.
All righty. Melissa, yes.
Hi, Silas. So great to hear you again. I always get deeper and deeper layers of that onion of what you're talking about. So thank you for that. I did want to mention, along with the explorers, we need the nurturers. Mm-hmm. And that's really coming from this divine feminine, that we've been in this patriarchal thing of doing, going outside and doing and acting and putting our mark on everything. And in balance to this exploration of new ways, we also have to go inward to find self-nurturing, nurturing the earth, and undoing and being and creative imagining. So it's a slightly different process, as you know.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that because I think we need to start using that in our language.
Thank you so much, Melissa. You're absolutely right. We have to have that new way of being. I'm going to explore that in the subsequent webinars, especially the ecological one and the spiritual one.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All righty. Ray's got his hand up. Go ahead, Ray.
Hi, this is responding to what Silas said and also to what Melissa said about our attitude towards ourselves and our relationship with nature. How do we reconcile that? We need to recognize the Anthropocene. We need to recognize the impact of the human race. And we need to recognize that there's a lot of bad things that we've done.
Right.
Yet at the same time, we've been doing bad things, learning the tools to ultimately be good. So there's a lot of people who are really hard on the human race. You discover the Anthropocene, you go, oh my God, we're so awful, we're so horrible, look at what we're doing. And people shut down. They just go, okay, I'm just going to bathe in my self-loathing, and that's my contribution. Help hate humanity and say, yeah, we're a virus. We should be eradicated from the planet, and then the world would be a better place. How do we find the balance?
Yeah, see, that's the journey I went through, where I realized that when you look at it from the perspective of nature is dominating humans, not the other way around. We are pretending to dominate nature. We are pretending to be the wisest species. We're pretending to be this most powerful species. But all along, we were puppets. So that's the story we are telling, right? All along we were used to create homeostasis for the planet. Just think about it, okay? We are calling ourselves Homo sapiens, but we were born 300,000 years ago in an environment of abject terror, where we didn't have claws, we couldn't run too fast, we couldn't even climb very well. Other animals were happily eating us. And so we were forced to develop tools to protect ourselves. If you look at it from the perspective of nature and you say nature was using us to get out of this ice age, then not only do I feel a sense of humility at the awesomeness of nature's plan, it's a humorous situation that you're in. All along you thought you were the boss of the planet and all along you're being used. And now you have to wake up and say, hey, if we don't transform ourselves, not go to self-loathing, but in the middle where you say, we belong just like any other species. We just had to fulfill our role. So we have a role, just like the elephant has a role in the forest, we have a role on the planet. So we have to just recognize our role and do the best job at it. And that role actually is consistent with all of our religious teachings as well. They all say you are a caretaker. Every religion is saying you are a caretaker. We are a caretaker species. Science is also saying you're a caretaker species. Because the story we are telling about the thermostat species is a story based on science. In that sense, I say it's neither should we be a narcissistic species pretending to be the wisest of them all, and nor should we be a self-loathing species. It's the middle path where we say we are just like any other species and we are going to do our best to fulfill our role. That is the sustainable path.
Yeah, Ray, I think the way back is through love and connection. I think we got separated from nature. We come from nature. We call it human nature, and we're connected to the environment and to the universe and to creation. And I see that all of this was planned. This isn't a coincidence that this is happening. It's part of the evolution of the universe and of this planet, this realm. I don't think we need to self-loathe. We need to love ourselves better. And by loving ourselves better and reconnecting with source energy, some call it spirit, reconnecting with nature, and reconnecting with what we love about ourselves and about the world around us. And we come back into that realm of the magic of this realm we live in and understanding that it's a paradise. It is also a scary place, like Silas was mentioning, that I sometimes feel like surviving here is like walking on a tightrope. You don't know if you're going to fall off or you're going to stay on it. And there's a kind of wicked beauty in that too. We're all survivors and we're all heroes of this journey, but all the better for really practicing gratitude and appreciation for every moment we take breath. And I think if we come back into that place also of gratitude, then we can reconnect. We can love the world again and life again. So I think it's really about disconnection, that we got separated from source. We forgot about the mystery of life. We got so bogged down in science, logos, rational thinking, materialism. We forgot where we're really coming from and who we really are. The way forward for me is us becoming conscious of that. And that would be the courageous explorer, I think, is actually going into that realm of the unknown and really enjoying the exploration of that and our connection with all the creatures of the world, all of life. So we stop hurting everything, which comes from fear. So L-O-V-E, love, big time. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to relate to what Melissa was sharing. I was just watching this interview with Donald Hoffman. He was just bringing up this point from evolutionary psychologists that they're looking into. Not that I buy that lock, stock, and barrel, but he was talking about some of their hypotheses about how logic and reason were actually mechanisms for persuading the rest of the tribe. So they're really actually not highly evolved, logic and reason. So it's like, I need logic and reason to prove to you why we should hunt that buffalo and not that buffalo. I need to use logic and reason to explain why I should be in charge and not you should be in charge. So I'm not doing great justice to that, but I just thought the actual topic was interesting in and of itself, because I think we've completely overblown logic and reason, obviously in the Newtonian patriarchal paradigm, as the height of human development, logic and reason. So yeah, I relate to that, Melissa.
Mhm.
We've really got to stop giving so much credence to that without being fair to the rest of the human experience.
Thank you, Brett. Rudolf Steiner, who was a great esoteric, writes a lot about supernatural beings overseeing what happens here in this realm. And he talks a lot about, at this time, the Ahrimanic being is influencing all of us. And that comes through technology, again, science, this logical thinking. And he says that humanity needs to prepare itself now for that arrival of Ahriman, and balance it with Christ consciousness, which is compassion and love. I personally can see it at play, even through some of us. You know, we might not be conscious of it. There is still this logic coming through, or using technology, but it seems that you're balancing it with compassion and love, positive, negative, light, dark, which is going to create balance and is, I think, a healthy way to move forward.
Yeah. I arrived at it through a synthesis. I had really let my logic take over, my engineering mind take over initially, and I had gotten to the point where I thought everything my ancestors taught me were not correct, because they were telling me that God is always in charge. You know, I didn't buy that at first. And then once my granddaughter was born, she made me look at it. She made me question everything and go back and look at what I've learned from my ancestors and say, is it possible that they're also correct? So is there a synthesis between their worldview and the scientific worldview? And that's what led me to look at the thermostat species hypothesis. Because that hypothesis says nature has always been in charge. God has always been in charge. Whatever you want to call that, this larger force, bigger than us. This is why even now I don't ask questions like, are we on schedule? You know, is this going to happen at the right time? I just say, I am not in charge. I'm just going to keep doing what I think is the right thing to do and let it fall where it may, right? You go to it now with surrender, not with the ego. It's with surrender, and say, I'm just an instrument, a tool that can be used for the good, the whole.
I would change that word to a gift, Sailesh. You are a gift. We are all gifts. We are seated with that from wherever we have come from. And our souls have come here to have this incredible experience. And if we can consciously unfold our gifts and gift them to ourselves as well as out into the world, then we're on purpose. And that's when it gets exciting. The universe gives us clues. Last week, Michael Gaia was talking about the golden beetle, and my daughter sends me a photograph of her and Enzo in Mexico, and there's sitting on her shoe a golden beetle. You know, we're talking about synchronicity, and the golden beetle represents synchronicity in the myth. The universe is always communicating, giving us clues and things that say, yes, you're on the right path, or no, don't go that way, or here's something to use. And I think it gets really exciting when you can tune into that and start having that collaboration with not just other humans, but with the world around us.
Thank you for that, Melissa. I'll start using the word gift from now on, as opposed to a tool.
I really love the way you framed it, Sailesh, both visually and logically, about how we are factory farmed humans. That really hit home for me. I think of centuries past here in the Americas when we had institutionalized slavery, and the slaves would get together when they could, whether it's at night, in their sleeping quarters, and they would plan and they would discuss and they would kind of create this safe space for liberation. Now, they wouldn't do it during the day when they can be seen and persecuted. Likewise, I feel like what we're doing here is we're creating a safe space. We are these enslaved factory farmed humans, but we're creating a safe space in the cloud, in this virtual realm where you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to pay money to come here. And we're liberated from a lot of the physical realm You could imagine all of us just closing our eyes in our beds and connecting in this dream world. I just want to give kudos to all of us for participating in this new super medium of connection. And we are co-creating a much safer, better world here, starting in the imaginal, right? We are the imaginal cells. We're caterpillar to butterfly transition.
Right.
It only takes a few imaginal cells to play that role of imagining and then orchestrating the transformation. We are it. Back to you, Silas.
Yeah, it is transforming our story and then transforming our game so that we are making sure that everyone gets to the imaginal cell stage and then goes from imaginal cell to the organs of the butterfly. And we all find our place in the butterfly.
Silas is on point, but feel free to raise your hand.
Hello.
Yes, Miles. Jump in, Miles.
Hello, guys. Great presentation as usual, Dr. Rao. I've got your white paper here. I hope to talk to people. There's a Dr. Swan over there, and I'm hoping I might get his attention, bring him over here. He's a medical doctor, and he's one of the leading climate activists in this city. I will keep holding up the white paper and the sign. If I can get Dr. Swan over here, we'll chat with him. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Miles. You just made a connection for me that I hadn't quite made before, which is we start with a new story, co-creating a new story. Based on that new story, we co-create a new game and we start playing. And then through playing the game, we transform and we transform the world. Look at Miles with all his beautiful signs. Love you, Miles, and all that you're doing out there. There he is in downtown Calgary on, Fridays for Future, sharing with all the youth and everyone there. Beautiful. You got a bunch of people on the street there who are demanding transformation, and it's got to happen just like this, and it's got to happen now, and we got to make these structural changes now, right? But what Silas is helping me realize is those of us who get into that mode and all compassion and love for those who do want to go straight for the change, we're kind of missing a couple of steps. Story, game, then transformation. Anyway, just wanted to share that insight. Back to you, Silas.
No, that's beautiful, Jamin. That's the realization I had. You look for an explanation for what's happening that does not require blaming anybody. It's a very non-judgmental way of looking at things. Then you realize they were playing a game. They're playing a role in this larger game based on the old story, the story that humans are Homo sapiens, the wisest of all species. So when you realize, no, you've been used all along, you have to look back with humility at what has happened. Then you say, well, we can now play a different game.
Well, we can play a different game, but it's like creating a new story where instead of, we're just victims now and whatever. I love how you take the long view, Silas, and with the thermostat species, et cetera, because you're creating a really broad story that spans past and future, and you are here. It gives us a way to integrate the past and integrate the future that we so deeply desire into one continuous story. Well, you happen to be on chapter 7, but here's the whole book, right? So don't get too fixated on where you are now. Let's look at the whole story. Let's rewrite the story, and out of that derive a new game, which will transform everything and co-create the future. All right. Well, feel free to raise your hand if you have a question or comment. Yes, Ray. Go for it, Ray.
You talked about politics in your presentation. We're in an election year. Obviously, we want people to vote and vote in overwhelming numbers, yet we don't want our vote to be our power expressed, and then we wait another 4 years until we express our power again. But politics is something that as we're exploring our solutions in Vegan World 2026, how much of it is stepping aside from politics and building something new to be revealed later? And how public is what we're doing, and how much does it affect things like elections?
This is why I refer to Dr. Shelley Ostroff's work on deconstructing democracy, because she looks at how democracy has been massaged and turned into a vehicle for the concentrations of power that are already here and to maintain that power. So she goes into details as to how it has been usurped for that purpose. From reading that, I realized that we give so much importance to that one vote that we cast once every 4 years, once every 5 years, but we don't give importance to the other votes we keep doing on a daily basis. So the votes on how we spend our money, that's a vote. Every dollar you spend is a vote. Whether you choose to vote or not, that's also a vote. Whether you choose to spend or not, that's a vote. So I realized you have a lot more power there than the power you supposedly have by voting in one person once every 4 or 5 years. So the mainstream discourse is that your consumer choice, you don't really have power. We are going to manipulate you and make you consume exactly what we want. But you have all the power is over there when you vote once every 4 years. And you have to do that then, right? So that's the mainstream discourse. That's the mainstream story that we are being told, which is false. So Gandhi realized that 100 years ago. He realized that we have power in what we choose to buy. So he convinced the people of India to buy certain types of clothes and therefore shake the mighty British Empire, right? In the same way, we can now, by choosing what we eat, choosing what we buy, we can shake the mighty corporate empire. Even then, it was the corporate empire, it wasn't the British Empire, it was the corporate empire anyway. So even now, we can shake the mighty corporate empire, not only shake it, but make the corporate empire do what we want it to do things that are for the good of the planet. These entities are so powerful now, and the power has been institutionalized in the current system. We need to make them help us get out of this. That is the idea behind the game of Aquarius. And that's the idea behind even promoting the vegan movement, because it is shaking the industry. You see the dairy industry dying out in front of our eyes and pleading for more and more subsidies. We are making a difference. So when we realize we're making a difference, that's the power that we weren't aware of before. This is exactly what Gandhi was trying to do, showing the people of India that they had so much power. They felt powerless, but they had so much power all along. It's a long answer to your question.
Well, it's a great answer. It just occurs to me that there's a lot of pushback in the environmental movement that personal choice doesn't matter. You carrying a sign, getting out to the rally, showing up in numbers. If you can't do that, support your favorite NGO and keep their coffers full, keep them doing the good fight, and NGOs will win the war for us rather than individuals.
Right.
And there's very strong pushback on some solutions like veganism in the same solutions as changing our light bulbs. There's an argument that there's false justifications. Say, I'm an environmentalist, I'm doing my recycling really, really well. They're saying no straws when you order a drink. So is there false justifications, or is it all just a rehearsal that every little thing that we do matters? It leads to the next thing, as long as it doesn't stop on the one thing. Drinking straws isn't going to do it.
Yeah, every little thing we do matters. But when we are told a story in which they say that doesn't matter, what matters is this, they're trying to take the power away from us. The NGOs are being funded by corporations too. So the corporations don't want you to think you have power. They want you to buy their products. That's all they want you to do. It's important for them that you don't realize you have that power and you become a mindless consumer.
I've heard it said that voting with your dollars is letting the government off the hook. You're solving the problem. Individuals are solving the problem. The government can do whatever they want. I've heard that argument.
I know. It's exactly what Gandhi went through, right? The people also told him that. And he said, no, let's do this and that. If you want to do both, go for it. Okay, if you want to fight the government on protests, go for it too. But don't ever lose sight of the fact that with every dollar you spend, you are voting for the world you wish to see.
But he saw a very specific value in the Khadi movement, in the clothes, and in the salt marches. So those are very two specific commodities, as opposed to change your eating utensils. There was very deep meaning in the particular movements.
Yeah, he saw so much value in the clothing because at that time, the textile industry was the largest industry in England. And the textile industry was taking cotton from India, turning it into textiles and sending it back to India and selling it there. So by convincing the people of India to just take their cotton, turn that into their own clothes and wear it themselves, he completely circumvented this loop and he bankrupted the textile industry. He was focusing on that because it was the largest industry in England. We are focusing on the food because it is the largest industry in the world today. Every government has been usurped by the animal agriculture industry. They're in their pockets. This is why I say the vegan movement is the exact equivalent of the Khadi movement. And it's now worldwide as opposed to just in India. We have to do this worldwide. And when we do this worldwide, we are going to free ourselves, just like Gandhi freed India from British rule. We're going to free ourselves from corporate rule. And then we are going to create this new system. So this whole process of birthing a free human species is also about birthing a free earth, free animals. It's freeing all of us together.
Just one last comment. Jamin, I wonder if you could get David Wallace Wells out to our block party. He published The Uninhabitable Earth, because I remembered that was his quote that he said, personal choice, going vegan, is letting the government off the hook.
Why do you have to let government off the hook? You can keep them on the hook too, right? And go vegan. So you can walk and chew gum at the same time. So Gandhi was not just wearing different clothes. He was actually marching and demanding that the British leave India. So he was doing a lot of things in addition to changing his clothes. Gandhi kept his priorities right. He said the Khadi movement was number one in his priority. He wanted people to change their clothes first and then show up for protests. So in a way, it's like saying the Fridays for the Future, go vegan first and then show up for Fridays for the Future.
We were talking earlier about, you could look at it simplistically as a three-phase transition. First story, then a new game, and then the game transforms. I'm starting to look at it as a spiral in a sense. Mm-hmm. So we might start with a relatively simple story that leads to a simple game, which leads to a more fleshed out story, which leads to a more fleshed out game. But if you think about the big story and the big game that goes into detail, so that every month from now into the next 100 years, we know exactly what to do as a group, as an individual, as a family, as a neighborhood, as a nation. And that will then lead to generate the big game. For example, what we're doing right here, we're playing a very simple game. We're all getting together on video conference and we're sharing. Out of this game is emerging a story. But this game, in turn, emerged from a simpler kind of proto story of, hey, if we get together, we can change the world. Well, now that we're getting together, we're creating a bigger story, which is leading to bigger games like the Infinite World game. Yeah, go ahead, Ed. Go for it, Ed.
I've been thinking about a game kind of, Where is Waldo? To change the way we teach kids in school that sharing is cheating. And often don't ask in science, like I was trained in engineering, we ask, what's the problem? What's the solution? We don't ask who can help and may already have the solution. And I've been trying to think through ways in which we can particularly get younger kids involved by having questions that we look for answers for and have them go around and talk to adults that they know. And in that process, learn more about other people and science and things, and find somebody who may have an answer to a question. I have no more to it than that at the moment, but I'll put that on the table in case it stirs some interesting thoughts with others.
Beautiful. It totally stirs thoughts with me about collective intelligence, because that's kind of the big idea, is anyone can put forward a question and then the appropriate group of people can swarm around that, generate the answer, and then the question and the answer remain in the database for all time. And of course, here we're grappling with the really big question, as Silas phrased, how do we not go extinct?
Yeah, I have to tell you, with my granddaughter and her generation has literally been teaching me. Every year I learn something new. Every day I learn something new from them. She pointed out that even our epics are full of violence. And we have to rewrite our epics. We have to rewrite all our fairy tales. They're full of violence. Because any fairy tale I read to her, she'll say, stop it. Why did that happen to that animal? I think we need to create like a whole narratives and mythologies part of the base camp where we put all these stories out there and modify them, so that they all become nonviolent. It's a really big job that we need to do, because that's how we indoctrinate our children into violence in the current system.
I'm wondering about the possibility of using a wiki as a place to gather the questions and the answers, so that all of this gets captured and recorded. So I've got a wiki up at the moment that's just kind of a starting sandbox, and hope to get one that will be structured a little bit better subsequently and build that knowledge base over time.
Right. That's a great idea. In fact, that's one of the discussions we're going to have on Tuesday, something like Wikipedia and Quora together. So there are multiple answers to a question. Whichever one you want to refine, you refine it. And then one answer stands out, or two answers, people have an idea how to put it together.
I also am learning from my granddaughter, and she's drawing the characters for me for this game because she's a talented young artist and she draws game characters. And I think these might be some of the ways in which we can get kids involved by having interesting personas or avatars in these games. So at the moment, I'm learning from her the same way you are from your granddaughter.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Miles, go ahead, Miles.
Hello, everybody. So I have some guests here with Fridays for Future Calgary Climate Strike.
Hello.
Earbud in.
What's up, guys? Yo, yo, yo!
Yes.
I know, I'm skipping 2 periods
You're
today.
skipping 2 periods. She's skipping 1 period. So this is dedication, people.
Yeah.
You're gonna join the Radish block party when you get a chance.
Yeah, I think Radish?
Well, yeah, it's radish.org.
Yeah.
So you start Fridays. It goes to 7 in the morning every Saturday.
So every
Join in
Friday
with
we'll
these
be
people.
here.
When you go home this evening, if you go to radish.org, you'll follow the links to the block party Zoom link. Thanks for dropping by. You can keep that. I'm giving them a copy of Dr. Rao's climate change white paper, so they're going to go study that. So
Thank you.
there you go. Thank you, guys.
Beautiful, Miles. Goodness, wonderful. Thank you so much. Woo! Miles, go Miles. Awesome. Loving it. Everyone here is loving it, Miles. Melissa is up next. Go ahead, Melissa.
I just wanted to come back to what Silas was saying about fairy tales and rewriting fairy tales. For 3 years, I worked as an artist in residence at a preschool. I started using puppets, and I took old fairy tales and stories and created a whole new world. So there was Falada the dragon, and instead of fearful dragons burning people to a crisp, the dragon was a peace bringer. We would create these characters and this whole new world together, which is about planting a garden, rebuilding the earth, taking care of one another. The dragon created a nest for all the lost children, you know, Wolf Mama and her babies. And it was so fantastic. The children got it right away, and they couldn't wait every day for a new chapter for us to co-create together. So
Awesome.
I love this idea, and I think the more of that we do, the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I taught the children Haida language and songs, and there was a snail puppet, and he would work with them on language. So he would come out of his little shell, and he would say to the children, "Good morning, children. I understand you know how to speak Haida. Could you teach me how to say butterfly in Haida?" And the children would say, "Dee, dak, do." And the snail would come out and he would say, "Dee, dak, diddly do." And they would just roar with laughter, and they would say, "No, silly, it's dee, dak, do." So it's a really effective teaching tool. And
Awesome. It's actually a lot of fun to take stories like Brother Grimm's stories, which are full of violence, and turn them into stories that are non-violent. There's a lot of fun actually doing it. I was going through them one by one, making versions of it for Kimaya that was non-violent.
I wanted to mention that there's in Vegan World 2026 a team called Mythology and Narrative.
Yeah.
Narrative and Mythology, I think it is. We haven't got it started yet, but the idea of teams is that rather than the projects, they're focusing on a particular skill set of the people participating in the team, and they can bring those values to any project that they belong to. So storytelling is something that's really important, especially when we're dealing with a lot of science, when we're dealing with facts and figures and charts. Sometimes people aren't getting it, and sometimes there's so much story within a chart itself. Having storytellers in each one of our groups is going to be so important, because people don't react to science, they don't react to charts, they react to story. They have to have an emotional reaction to the data before the data becomes relevant at all.
I want to give a shout out to Miles out there in the street. That's awesome, man. Rock and roll. You're awesome.
I was able to give Dr. Swan a copy of the Climate Healers report. I wonder if Dr. Vipond will come over here and talk with me. He's actually the leader of the Climate Hub. Hello, Dr. Vipond. Very good. My name's Miles. We're on Facebook together. So do you mind being on this 24-hour block party? It's broadcasting around the world. Everybody, here's Dr. Joe Vipond, emergency physician in Calgary, and he is also the co-chair of the Calgary Climate Hub. Do you want to say hi to the people, Dr. Vipond?
No, I got them up for the food. Hi, world.
Hi.
Yeah,
I'm trying to scarf down some food because I'm actually an active emerge doc, and I work at 2 o'clock today. So I'm here with my daughter, Sadie, who wanted to strike today, and I'm supporting her. But I got to eat before I get on my bike and bike to work at starting in about 20 minutes. So I've got a bunch of different hats. Aside from being on the Calgary Climate Hub, I do a bunch of social media, and then I'm the president-elect of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, and I'm a strong believer that the messaging on this has been, we haven't succeeded too well to this point because we've talked more about polar bears dying and less about humans feeling the health impacts. And so I think physicians have a really important role to play when it comes to talking to citizens about why we need to care about this. It's harder to ignore it when it's yourself and your family that are at risk.
So let me introduce you to a few people. This is Dr. Silas Rao, and I'll give you a copy of his white paper. Dr. Rao is a Stanford-educated systems engineer. He worked for a while with Al Gore. He's done an analysis that industrial animal agriculture, beef, pork, dairy, is actually a larger, by far, contributor to our situation because of the deforestation that it's responsible for. So that's not to say that coal, oil, and gas don't need to be attended to. It's just that unless we correctly analyze, as Dr. Rao has done, the impact that industrial animal agriculture has had on deforestation, we're not actually going to address the cause. I'm going to give you a copy of Dr. Rao's white paper here. He's really put together a great analysis that needs to be incorporated. The deforestation, we have to restore the forests, and that's where the IPCC is missing the mark.
I'm going to take some time and spend some time with my daughter, who I'm here to be with. So thanks for getting me engaged on the
I'm going
session.
to give you back your earbud. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you, Miles. Thank you again so much.
Chase wants to say hi to Dr. Rao.
Yes, hi there. Obviously, we're at the climate strike right now.
Yeah, he's seen some of your videos, Dr. Rao, and I'm telling him about the other videos like Prayer for Compassion. Go check those out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that stuff. I've found your content on YouTube and stuff and watched a lot of it and looked into some of those things. It's really interesting. I really enjoy it. And I've got friends too that really enjoy it as well. Yeah.
So yeah, Chase is going to spread the word.
Absolutely. I'm going to let everyone know.
Thank you so much.
Chase.
Thank you. Here, I'll give you back over there.
Miles,
Catch you on the replay.
thank you.
Thank you for doing out there in the cold. We appreciate you.
Thank you. See ya. V for vegan.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
My name's Lawrence. There's this issue of how to create a movement that is potent enough to drive forward a new cycle of world change. I'd like to argue that the only way to do that is to form a new form of religio. So not religion, but religio, a new way of binding people together into a community that can work towards a common goal. And I would like to argue that the only way to do that is to feed the people by creating a ritual of actual feeding, of the preparation of food and the free giving of food in as many places as possible simultaneously, to synchronize everybody's behavior around the act of giving. And around that communal fire, a community will grow. From that spark, on top of that, around that, one can create a movement.
Beautiful, beautiful, Lawrence. We're all about feeding the world, ending hunger, and I hadn't connected the dots like you have, so we definitely need to talk.
Lawrence, I really appreciated what you said. I think you're onto something there. Creating a ritual, creating something like that would be a great way to have a movement. I always had this idea of a veggie gras party, like Mardi Gras, but it's veggie gras, that everyone eats at the same time together. That's a great idea. Thank you. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the social change that needs to happen. So thank you very much for the forum, Jamin. As always, it's great to see you. I'll see you all next week again.